James Franklin and the Virginia Tech Hokies will be relevant in year one.
Locked On presents The Portal, the daily podcast covering college football recruiting and everything NIL. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Into the Portal Podcast, where you get your daily recruiting, NIL, and transfer portal scoop. I'm your host, Brian Smith, longtime college football recruiting analyst. Thank you for making the Portal Podcast your first listen each and every day, right here on the nation's #1 sports podcasting network, and that is Locked On. And thank you for helping us get there. All things Virginia Tech today. The main theme is going to be whether or not Virginia Tech can be relevant in year one. And I say yes. They have SMU, Miami, and Clemson all on the road. So they're going to have their fingers in some interesting games. I don't know if they're ready for that. Most of those, I believe, are on the back half of the schedule. We'll go into that. Win totals, Virginia Tech is 6.5. I'll give you my opinion on that. Relevant doesn't mean beating the win total. That's another question. We're also going to talk about the competition. Who are they competing with, both from a record standpoint this year, but also one that involves the perception. Recruiting battles, bringing in the right players from the portal, quarterback development, not something James Franklin is known for. There are a lot of questions to answer, but if you take nothing else from this podcast, the point here that I'm going to make is very, very important. Yes, they're going to be relevant, but here's why. The one thing you cannot argue about James Franklin is Penn State teams were consistent. They really didn't beat themselves. They didn't have a ton of stupid plays that just killed them, and they recruited consistently. They would build slowly, and they developed players, especially on defense. I don't think that's going to change. Ironically, the old head coach at Virginia Tech is his old DC at Penn State, and now he's going to be his DC at Virginia Tech. So there's some familiarity on the defensive side. So that is why offense is going to be the biggest question this year. Again, we'll get into the schedule, but it starts with Ethan Grunkemeyer. He's the quarterback that was at Penn State last year. Here are the numbers for Ethan, and it wasn't anything immense, but it was a solid start for a redshirt freshman. 100 of 145, 69%, only 7.4 yards per completion, 6 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. He's got 3 years of eligibility. That's a possibility. But the other guy that they had transfer in, I think, is just as intriguing and has a higher ceiling. Maybe it's more boom or bust. I don't know. Bryce Baker, he redshirted last year at North Carolina. He transfers to Virginia Tech. Had a chance to get to know him and his father over the last couple of years. 7 on 7, Elite 11, that kind of stuff. Really good kid, really athletic. And Bryce is a guy that I think could fit into any locker room. At some point, there could be competition. I don't know if it's this year or next. But Bryce Baker is very, very skilled. I will be surprised if he's not in the mix, at least next spring in some capacity, unless Grunkemeyer takes a major step forward. Keyshawn Brown comes over from Duke, 52 catches, 665 yards, 12.8 yards per reception, and 3 touchdowns. That's an impact guy. Nice seeing somebody with over 600 yards receiving walking into your room. I know he's a slot, but still. They also get Luke Reynolds from Penn State. He's got a couple years left. He had 24 catches, 229 yards, 9.5 yards reception last year. Highly touted player. I think he will be a young man that ends up being probably their top tight end moving forward. He's got NFL skills, 6'4", 250, 260, somewhere in that range. Not sure if he's going to be dominant. He only averaged 9.5 yards a catch, but it was Penn State's passing game. I'm hoping he could do a little better for Virginia Tech, but physically he's what you're looking for. O-line, they took 4 guys in the portal. 6'6", 322-pound Logan Howland from Oklahoma a couple years ago had quite a bit of run. This past year banged up quite a bit. Still had a handful of games that he started. He's probably going to play tackle, I would assume. I'm not following Virginia Tech as close yet. I want to see the end of their spring because they got too many new players. They've got 27 transfers and like 22 players coming in high school. I mean, over half the roster flipped. I need to see the end result there. But that's a good player that was in the SEC, but that's kind of the high water mark. And he's coming off injury. The one big concern, like especially if you're looking, again, FanDuel has Virginia Tech at 6.5. The one big concern I have with them is offensive line. When you have these massive changes in roster, O-line is the one that probably is most often to go down. They don't transfer very often, but when you have head coaches leaving or mass dispersal of assistants, whatever it may be, a few more O-line will leave, and there just aren't that many good ones that get in the portal. So I'm curious to see Virginia Tech up front. And on the other side, 8 guys, defense. They took a ton, including a young man I'm very familiar with from the state of Florida, Javion Hilson. He played at Cocoa. He was ranked a 5-star by Rivals at the end, if I remember correctly. Great kid, 4.0 student from a tough high school, Cocoa, but they're always good. And man, is he a guy that's driven. Signed with Missouri. Now he's over at Virginia Tech. Do not be surprised if Javion Hilson at some point this year steps forward, and at some point in his career, he's got 3 years left. I will be shocked if he's not. Here are a couple of questions that I have in regards to Tech. I already mentioned that, look, O-line's my biggest concern. That's not going to change. Can they find a way to piece that together to at least be competitive? Because, again, especially in the back end of the schedule, and I'll go through that here in about 5 minutes, SMU, Clemson, and Miami all on the road, that's rough. If your O-line is not congruent by the back half of that season, that's going to be a problem. And just to add on to it, can they start getting some elite offensive linemen from the high school ranks? That's the question I ask of everybody, because if you do not recruit elite offensive linemen, you're done. It's pretty much the way it is. Again, I mentioned it a moment ago, and it is just fact. Even schools like a Michigan or a Texas or a Miami, etc., there are very few really good offensive linemen get the portal, especially tackles. There just aren't. Center, guard, yeah, you can get a few. Tackles, man, they're just very, very few and far between. When you look at the offensive line, that's one concern. But is there another playmaker? I mentioned a second ago, they got Brown coming in. Is there a playmaker that's going to gel with all the new players and make this the right offense for them? Defensively, I think they'll be okay. Brent Pryce, good coordinator. He knows the team. Obviously, he was the head coach just last year. If they do not win, though, on offense, there's always so much you can do. And even getting to 6 wins is tough, let alone getting to 7 to get over that 6.5 win total that FanDuel has. I'm not sure. So the defense, to me, they need to have some leaders, some playmakers there that kind of make it a little bit easier. It's harder to install offense than it is defense by a million miles. Plus, you got Pride coming back to the staff in a different role. So they signed 3 corners out of the portal. I didn't think, just by looking at them, just kind of going through it, I didn't think any of them were like unbelievable, but maybe 1 or 2 can pop. You're going to need depth. The ACC is going to throw it around. Moving over from that perspective to the defense overall, who's going to be the guy that leads them in turnovers or taking the ball away? Because they're still probably going to give up a lot of yards. It's not like Virginia Tech is insanely skilled. They have some talent, but it's not elite. I just think they're going to hang around in every game, and they will be a viable opponent. They will be relevant in year 1. Now, if you mean relevant in the sense of how many wins, like Brian, relevant's not acceptable unless you're at least 9 wins. I would back off of that. I don't see 9 wins. I think their ceiling is probably 8 unless everything just lines up right down the middle. And they get every break, block field goals, maybe a couple punt returns for touchdowns in crucial games, stuff like that. Special teams plays, those kinds of situations can't be predicted. It's really hard. I think 8 wins is kind of their ceiling, but I also think 5 wins is their nadir. Like the bottom end, that's it. We'll see. When we come back, why I think the 27 transfers will take them to a bowl. Well, the transfer word is a little bit subjective because over 10 of them are for Penn State. That's right. Franklin is going to be very familiar with this group, and I'm going to tell you why that matters right here on the Portal Podcast. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at TurboTax. It is tax time, but for a lot of us, the old way of doing taxes is a lot. Trying to book an appointment, that's not the most convenient. Sitting in a waiting room with a stack of papers, emailing back and forth, wondering if they really get your situation. But this year, you're getting a major upgrade. Intuit TurboTax now has in-person locations across the nation. You can meet face-to-face with a real tax expert, and your documents get uploaded straight to your TurboTax app on the spot. And just like that, you are done. Your TurboTax expert works to get you every dollar you deserve, while you get real-time notifications as you go about your day. It's the relief of walking in and meeting a real person and walking out knowing your taxes are being handled right. Head to TurboTax.com, FanDuel.com/local to find a store near you and book an appointment. Thank you once again for checking out the Portal Podcast. If you want to take your game to the next level, check out the Everydayer Club in the link down below. It will explain everything. And right now, if you use code MARCH, you will get a month free. You can get your podcasts on the go with no ads, whether it's Spotify, Apple, or whatever you use. Check out the Everydayer Club. All right. Now, I mentioned before the break, they got 27 transfers, but like 12 of them, somewhere in there, are Penn State players. Here's why that number is relevant. And I'm not saying this is going to follow exact, but just hear me out. Indiana brought 13 transfers from JMU. They had a really good year one. 8 of them remained. 8 this past season. Obviously, that worked out. Fisher, D'Angelo Pons, etc. They had some really good players from that roster. And it's not just the production on the field, it's the leadership aspect. It's the installation. It's helping other players, especially younger players. Hey, this is how we do it. They've got quarterback. I mean, that's important. Grunkemeyer, even if he doesn't end up being a dude, he knows the system. That matters. The ACC is still not a very good league, but Virginia Tech's probably got the hardest schedule. So those little things, not wasting time in spring, not wasting time in summer workouts, and again in fall camp. Every rep counts. I'm steadfast they will be relevant this year. They're probably going to end up beating 1 or 2 teams you didn't think they necessarily would. Maybe it's a Clemson or a Miami or something. Who knows? I'm not going to bet on any of that, but they're going to be in every game for the most part because this will be a consistent operation. I think they're going to have to get to year 3 for me to feel comfortable saying they're at the upper echelon of the league and they can compete for ACC titles and or playoff berths. That's minimum. I'm going to talk about recruiting just in a moment. But right now, I think the biggest thing to note, it's not really 27 transfers because Franklin knows almost half of those guys from his team, and I'm sure he recruited some of the others that he just didn't get out of high school. There's going to be more familiarity here. So with that in mind, I'm going to go through my list with their schedule. And I'm going to tell you the games that they should, at least have a contest with, where team's competitive, etc., and what their win total is based on FanDuel. Their first game that they have a chance to lose is like week 3. They play Maryland on the road. Maryland's got a really talented young quarterback. Win total for Maryland, though, is only 4.5. Next week, it's the worst team in the ACC. It's Boston College, 3.5 win total. Week after that would be I think it's their 5th game. Pittsburgh. This one's interesting. It's at Virginia Tech, so you get to hear Enter Sandman from Metallica, my favorite band, and you get to see a game that should be really competitive. Again, Virginia Tech's win total 6.5, Pitt's 7.5. We'll see, but I think that there will be reason to believe by that point, but Virginia Tech really shouldn't be an underdog in that game. That could be a game Pittsburgh falls because I think that Virginia Tech will just be consistent. I don't think they're going to beat themselves. We'll see. That's a good home crowd. Then it gets really interesting because the rest of the slate just has different forms of pitfalls. Here we go. Cal on the road. I mean, that's literally in the Bay Area. That's a long way. JKS at quarterback. Who knows? Cal's under total for wins is 6.5. All right. The next week you come home and you play Georgia Tech. Mendoza's younger brother is now the quarterback at Tech, barring something unforeseen. That's a toss-up game. I wouldn't touch that with a 10-foot pole. Clemson, you go on the road after that, and this is like game 8. Like you haven't had a bye yet. That's going to be hard. Death Valley is your last game of the start of the season before a bye. Ugh. Just as a record, historically, teams in week 6 straight through, that's when things oftentimes start to come unraveled, especially with the new roster. I'm kind of curious. Again, that would be the Cal game. Then you got Georgia Tech. Then you got Clemson here on the road. Oof. Then you have a bye, but then it gets dicey again. You got to go to Dallas to play SMU. Not friendly. Come home, play a terrible Stanford team. Their win total is 3.5. By the way, SMU's is 8.5, and Clemson's is 7.5. Then after you play Stanford, you go on the road again. You go to Miami. not likely to be favored there. Then you finish the year with Virginia, a rivalry game. We don't know who their quarterback's going to be. There's a battle there, and even if they name somebody today, I wouldn't put a lot of stock in it. Not going to go down that rabbit hole, but there's still a chance that Morris ends up being quarterback. If he wins his appeal, who knows? But it's a really unique schedule. If Virginia Tech wins 5 games, not surprised. If they won 8 games, I also wouldn't be surprised. That's a huge variance. But again, you got some weird games that are kind of iffy. Pittsburgh at home, Georgia Tech at home, Virginia at home. Those 3 are probably decided. I don't think they're beating Clemson, SMU, or Miami on the road. I don't think many people are going to argue with me on that. But it's those other games right there in the middle. I have no idea what's going to happen. We'll see. But their win total right now is 6.5. That's probably about right. If I had to guess it, that's where I would put it. As for the ACC competition in the perception, that is what I'm most interested in. We'll get into that and the chat, kind of go into the second part of the show. And I want to open it up and look at things broader in the ACC. That's what this is going to be about. I think there's a lot to discuss. Matter of fact, I'll go into the chat first, and then we'll go into the ACC discussion. But this is an important year for James Franklin and his squad because there's a few other teams that could be changing their situations with the head coach, new quarterbacks coming up at different schools. This is a pivotal year, so he got there at the right time. Let's talk about that next right here on the Portal Podcast. Today's show is brought to you by our friends at Robinhood. What if sports were traded like markets? Now you can put your sports IQ to work in real time with Robinhood prediction markets. It's not you against the house. It's you participating in a live market. You can buy or sell your positions live all game long. Use your sports knowledge in the moments that matter. Robinhood prediction markets changes the game. It's people moving the action. So when momentum shifts, you can move with it. You always knew the game, but never had the dynamic way to apply that knowledge. Now you can actually take part live in a market powered by people. You're no longer just a spectator. Play by play, you decide. Trade every play with Robinhood. Now available in the United States. Download the Robinhood app to begin. Futures and cleared swaps trading involves significant risk. It is not appropriate for everyone. Event contracts are offered by Robinhood Derivatives, LLC, a registered futures commission, merchant, and swap firm. We are also brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. Tournaments here. We're getting to the Final Four. In fact, one of the best times of the year. Everybody enjoys seeing the Final Four and all the things that are going on. The brackets, buzzer beaters, the upset, nonstop action. College hoops are awesome from final tip to the cut down. I really enjoy the tournament, and I hope everybody else does too. Women's tournament as well. And right now, FanDuel is giving new customers a way to stay in on all the tournament action. Here's the best part. You can get $300 back in bonus bets every day for 10 days. That means 10 chances to stay involved throughout the entire tournament. You can mix it up however you want. Game picks, futures, or even same-game parlays for bigger potential buyouts. Or payouts, excuse me. It's perfect for the tournament because there's something different every day because you never know what's going to happen. Just think of the UConn versus Duke game. Did anybody see that 19-point lead being evaporated? It's crazy. Visit FanDuel.com to sign up today. That's FanDuel.com to get in on all the action. All right, the perception is something we're going to get to here in a minute, but first I want to go into the chat. Say hi to Salty and everybody else that is coming into the chat today. Let's see what we got. Salty, you are a busy man in here, man. You have a long history already in this chat today. Is it the new trend for an elite head coach hiring this coach that brings 10-plus members of his old team with him? And if he can't, is he behind coaches that can? Probably. Again, continuity matters. The only exception I'll make with that is if I'll just use an easy one. When Bama hired DeBoer, do you really think he had much of a concern about going to the AD and asking, hey, this assistant that I want, he's going to be expensive? There are certain schools that's just different. Notre Dame, Texas, Alabama, certain schools just have different bankrolls. But especially if it's one more budgety, if you know what I mean? Yeah, bringing your own guys so continuity is in the factor. Yeah, big deal. I didn't see how the show notification until about 10 minutes ago, so I'm behind the 8 ball here. Yeah, I don't think you're behind. You do a good job with that, brother. Did you know that Brian is having surgery today? Yes, I did, actually. Virginia Tech has a very loyal fan base, so all Franklin needs to do is show progress, and they will be behind him all the way. I agree, but the word progress, it's a little subjective. They need to win one of those. Like, if they could win SMU or Clemson, I'm not picking them to win Miami. I'm sure Katie will argue with me about that. But is there somebody in there, in that group of boosters, that really gets behind him, that helps push that forward? They keep bringing in the money. That'll be important. But you need some momentum. You need to, like, the Pitt game. Let's bring that up. It's at home. Pitt's a pretty consistent program in the ACC by and large. Heinzel, I mean, he's a good quarterback. If you can go beat Pitt and you start the year 4 or 5-0, whatever that is, then we're talking about a different deal. Totally different deal. You would have some momentum. Now, again, I'm going to pick them to lose to Clemson, SMU, and to Miami. They're all on the road. I think they got better rosters. They do. But at the same time, I would not be surprised, especially the way Clemson, or if they won at Clemson especially, I would not be surprised. So we'll see. Virginia Tech made its name under Coach Beamer by recruiting the Hampton Roads area aggressively, true, while Virginia would not admit those athletes. Will Franklin invest in Hampton Roads, and how does he know the coaches? Well, I mean, Penn State recruited the same area. Zach Seko from Locked On Nittany Lions, he knows the deal. He knows that there's going to be a lot of battles with Virginia Tech. He's a little worried about it because Franklin can recruit. He's a pretty good recruiter in terms of how they operate, getting the kids from their area, not taking a lot of kids that aren't going to be long-term fits. They'll have fewer transfers because of that long-term. And above all else, probably be a scenario where there's just going to be continuity at an earlier stage. They'll take some of the Hampton Roads kids. I'll just go ahead and say this. They only signed one kid from North Carolina last year and only one kid from D.C. Those are the two areas I'm looking at. I think Hampton Roads will be easy. Most of those kids that end up at Virginia Tech will be the over the top, but it's getting North Carolina, like that state is loaded. In D.C., they're outside your state. You should get inside your state pretty well. That's the bigger key to me. Salty. Let's see here. From yesterday's podcast, I think Vanderbilt and Virginia would be two good choices. Are they going to match last season's results or fall back into their usual results? Virginia, I don't necessarily think so because they at least went and got a couple of quarterbacks that have some talent. We'll see. Maybe Tony Elliott has that turned around. They had an NFL running back. They had a couple pretty good backs. We'll see. I have hope they'll win at least 5 minimum. I don't know. Vandy's in the SEC, which is a whole nother level. And I think they're going to start Jared Curtis. Look, super talented, insanely talented player. I've seen him play live, nice guy, all that. What a cannon for an arm. But a freshman in the SEC? Do you trust a freshman quarterback in the Southeastern Conference? I don't. I think they'll be 5-7, 6-6 tops. But long-term, Jared Curtis will be a problem. Katie, how will Franklin's Penn State transfers and Penn State recruit flips impact the roster this year? Well, like I said, tight end and the quarterback, those are two of the guys. I think they got I want to say 4 of the defensive linemen were Penn State guys, and they could evaluate some of those 3-star kids. The trenches is where it starts, as you know, Katie. We've talked about this many times here on the Portal Podcast. That's important. What I didn't see were a bunch of the elite offensive linemen from Penn State or anywhere else come in. Again, that's my concern. But that familiarity, defense, quarterback, tight end, that should help. So not only are they good players, they come from Penn State, but they know the system. They're not going to have as many goof ups. You know how first-year coaches constantly burning timeouts, they're in the wrong formation. I expect to see less of that, especially on offense with Grunkemeyer. Again, he's your freaking quarterback. He better know this system. He was running it at Penn State. If not, there's something wrong. So they should have fewer mental errors that cost games. At least logically, that's the answer. How long will it take for Franklin to dominate in the ACC? Dominate, I need to see. And here's why. You used the word Franklin, and I think that's an error. I think it's Franklin and all of the following as well. Boosters consistently being bought in. I mean, consistently. Need a little luck with your assistant staff, not taking head jobs every place they can go. You need a little luck. And then finally, who's going to be the Messiah? At a place like Virginia Tech, you're not just going to throw mud at a wall and overwhelm people with your talent. You're not. They can get a lot better talent-wise, but it's an outpost. It's in the middle of the sticks in Southern Virginia. It's not the easiest place to recruit to, but it's still in Virginia. You're within 4 hours of like Hampton Roads, and you're within 4 hours of Charlotte, and yada, yada, yada. You're in a lot of good spots. Okay, so you're going to get some talent. But will the money be there? And will they have the right staff on campus long-term to recruit those kids? And while that's going on, you need to find a way the first 2 years to continually show progress. There's a thin path, but to me, dominance for Virginia Tech is every third year you're making a playoff run. I don't think it's a sustainable program to every year to be in the playoff picture, but maybe I'm wrong. Like a lot of people didn't think that was going to be the case with SMU, and then they had a few boosters drop insane money, and then that changed. What kind of money does Virginia Tech have? I don't know. We've heard they've upped the ante, but I need to see that long term. This is a great question, but if they get that long-term commitment, then you got a chance. The only thing you really got to worry about then is the part you can't control. Do key assistants take jobs in other places? Sometimes you can't stop it. You need certain guys to stay, and that's, some of the greatest coaches of all time, like Bobby Bowden at Florida State, his staff never left. It was insane. It really helped. Katie, how long will Franklin at Virginia Tech impact Penn State recruiting? Oh, massively. They're going to get 1 or 2 kids a year out of PA, in my opinion. The Virginia Tech, going to go in there, and from the get-go, it's going to be obvious, hey, he's got a presence, and Penn State's going to lose him. And I also think he's going to hurt him. We'll see. I still need to see it for sure. The area that I'm most curious about with those two banging heads is Washington, D.C. to Baltimore, that little corridor. It's about an hour apart between the cities. 1 or 2 players there is a big deal because that area is loaded. Per capita, the greater D.C. to Baltimore area is about as good as it gets in the country for high school football for the elite players. Not necessarily teams all the time, but they got quite a few good teams too. That's where I think it's going to be most important. If he takes away just 2 players a year from Penn State, that's substantial. That's 8 guys over a 4-year run. Katie, unlike the Big Ten, Franklin will win the big games in the ACC that he didn't in the Big Ten. Now, I'm going to guess on what Katie means here. I know her well enough because she comes on the show about everything to have some idea, but I think she means Ohio State's not in the ACC, obviously. Michigan, Oregon, Southern Cal, Washington, Iowa, Indiana. I mean, Ohio State, that league is way different than the ACC. To that end, Miami, SMU, Clemson, I should be saying Florida State right now, but I don't know what's going on with Florida State. That's a really good question. We'll talk about that. We'll wrap up the first part of the show, and I'll cut this off right now, and we'll put it for tomorrow when I break this up. This will be starter point 2, but I think that the perception is by year 3 at the latest, they should be one of the top 4 rosters in the league. SMU, Clemson, Miami. The other albatross here is Louisville. They're in the same spot as Virginia Tech, and I think that's the team we're going to compare them with a lot, and that's why I say this. Perception is reality. So this is a great question and a great point by Katie. Perception is always reality, whether it's fair or not. And it's usually not very fair with college football because fans always have a different opinion of their team than what is reality. If a win total like Virginia Tech is 6.5, their fans are predicting 9 and 10 wins. Pick a school, it's that way. Michigan State, it should be terrible this year. I bet you there are fans that think they're going 7 or 8 wins. They're going to be terrible. It's year 1. Their win total is like 4.5 or something like that. It's terrible. The point is still the same. Perception is reality. Can you beat a Louisville for key recruits and then beat them on the field. Jeff Brom's a respected coach, really good coach. What about Tony Elliott, former Clemson assistant and offensive coordinator? That's a guy that's pretty important. It's your rival. He's got Clemson ties. They're a program that's not considered to be high watermark in terms of talent. You've got way easier admission standards than Virginia, just truth. That's another one. To me, Louisville and Virginia are the two you need to look at. And if you want to throw Georgia Tech in, that's fine. They're another team that's around 6.5 win total right now. Brent Key can coach, though. He's at his alma mater, great O-line guy. I'd imagine they're going to be a thorn in a lot of people's sides. Those mid-level teams, if they do not pass them by the end of year 3, I think you're going to see Franklin get a little bit of flack. And if he hasn't passed them by end of year 4, then it'll be a whole different ballgame. Salty. Katie, will Virginia Tech be one of Miami's inexplicable losses? You already know what Katie's going to say to that. Salty, come on now. This is a predictable answer, and I'm going to go ahead and make this statement now. At some point, I need to get Katie a shirt that says, I love Mario Cristobal. We need to get her to take a photo and post it here on the Portal Podcast. Let's see. Katie says, the way the ACC rigged the schedules for 26 makes it way too obvious they want an ACC title game of Miami and Southern Methodist, and 100% agree with that. Why a home and home with Notre Dame? Because Notre Dame is not an ACC game for Miami or SMU. Yep, it's interesting. Both SMU and Miami play at Notre Dame in November. But even though they're in the league, probably the two best teams, barring something unforeseen. Katie's right. SMU doesn't play Miami at home or on the road. It's no different, by the way, just to Katie's point. This is not a one-league deal. Go look at Texas Tech's schedule. Comical. Out of conference is a joke. They don't play BYU. I don't think they play Kansas State. They got Arizona State at home. It's like, come on, man. It's obvious they're doing everything they can to get BYU to the conference title game with as few losses as possible, and they're trying to get Tech there undefeated. No doubt about it. So these leagues, and there's some shenanigans. Salty, I'll always set you up in the chat, Smitty. I'm a big fan of yours, and I think your show is excellent. Thank you. I do appreciate that. Katie says, and here we go, Mario snatched defeat from the jaws of victory better than any head coach in college football. He specializes in turning ice cream into cat poo with the best of them. That is one of the funniest lines I've ever read in my entire life. What we got here? Salty. Katie, Virginia Tech is my sneaky choice to beat Miami at their place. Mario is going to be Mario. By the way, correct me if I'm wrong, that game's a Friday night game. That doesn't help. It does not help. Salty says, Smitty, you're right about the staff. Coach Beamer had his DC for the entire coaching career there, and that guy turned down a bunch of head coach offers. It matters, man. Think about when Dabo was at Clemson. Venables could have went a few different places, but he wanted a job that had cachet. That's cool. I get it. So he waited. He got Oklahoma. That's got plenty of cachet. Oklahoma's got national titles, Heisman winners, and a lot of wins. Okay. Well, it helped Clemson for about 5 years that he could have been somewhere else. Katie, Miami. The perennial 3, 4, 5th place finisher in the Atlantic Coast Conference. Mario could take the Seahawks and screw it up. If nothing else, Katie definitely has one-liners. R. Graw, I just came from a Penn State team practice. I'm liking what I saw. I've gone to a couple under Franklin, and he had question marks. Well, I'm not saying that that's not true. I've never been to a Penn State practice of any kind, let alone one ran by James Franklin or anybody else. But I do have a couple of points about that. That's a different roster. Penn State defensively had guys that were waiting to play. Defensive back, linebacker, edge. The only spot they didn't have depth was D tackle. It was bad. but hardly anybody has D-tackle depth. There just aren't many of them. Here's the funny part. Virginia Tech's in the same boat, but their expectations aren't the same. We're not Penn State. So year one, you can kind of grind through that. They need to have a result by the end of year two, and we'll see where it goes. But I imagine after another portal cycle, some of the guys came in won't work out. They'll get washed out. Some of the recruits will get washed out. We'll see. But Virginia Tech should, and this is a very important word, should be in a circumstance where they're going to win some games. Again, the system ought to be pretty simple. It's plug and play. The head coach and defensive coordinator know each other. They've worked together before when they're in Happy Valley. I think that they will be competitive across the board, and they will be, at the very least, if they win 6 games, they're going to be a thorn in the side of everybody they play. It kind of comes down to the quarterback play, and I don't have a ton of faith in Ethan Grunkemeyer. I haven't seen enough of him. Hasn't played a ton. He wasn't great when he did. He was okay. But they need to find a way to get into the end zone, whether it's running the ball, short passing game, whatever. That's what spring ball's for. I'm a little anxious there. Defense, I think Penn State had a good defense, and you'll see similar results in a couple of years at Virginia Tech. They got some of those Penn State D linemen and stuff. They won't be quite to that level, but with Brent Pry calling the D, they'll be substantial. They'll be better than they were last year. They can't be much like they were not clutch. Oof, that was a bad team. To that end, now I just want to open it up in this regard. If you're in the chat, this is going to be the ACC questions. I'm going to run through the win totals again, just on the schedule for Virginia Tech. Just want to put it in perspective. Fire away anything you want. I don't care if it's Pittsburgh, if it's Louisville, Wake Forest, North Carolina, NC State, whatever it is you want to do, Cal, JKS. Just want to talk a little bit about what Virginia Tech is going into. This is the perception meets reality. I'm just going to go one by one. Again, I talked a little bit about Louisville. That's an important one. They're going to be measured a little bit against Georgia Tech. Then, of course, Virginia, that's your rival, in-state, who has way higher admission standards. What is the perception for James Franklin in year 3? Like, does he have to win 10 games in year 3 to keep everybody satisfied? Perhaps if the big boosters are going to write those kinds of checks, I could see that, and I get it. That's fair. What is the pecking order there? I mentioned again, Louisville, Georgia Tech, in Virginia. Is there somebody else? I mean, if Cal, like they've got a head coach that's an elite recruiter now, and they got JKS for this year and next year. He'll probably turn pro after his junior year. But if Cal passes you or has a better year than you, because my perception of Cal is not very good, especially in the East and where I live down south. I'm being very nice. If Virginia Tech struggles with Cal, Stanford, God forbid Boston College, oof, they're terrible, then there are some differences that need to be brought up. And that could impact recruiting and the transfer portal too. Are you headed in the right direction? That's what parents and recruits and the trainers and head coaches at the high school level of recruits are going to ask. And rightfully so. Does Virginia Tech have that cachet? I'm not sure they really do, but we'll see. Salty says, if Franklin wins 9+ games in year 3, he will be supported by the boosters. I would think so. The only question, I hate doing this, but I got to do it. And this is right up Katie's alley, but in the first 3 years, this is off the top of my head, so I didn't prepare this, but how many big games does Virginia Tech win? And when I say big games, I mean against either A, top 20 competition, or B, road games. Even against a mid-level team like a Georgia Tech next year or whatever, winning road games is really hard. Are they going to win more in a couple of those kinds of games a year? That's the thing that Penn State struggled mightily with, especially the top 5 to top 10 kind of teams. They would struggle a lot more. Katie says, in year 3, Franklin will be in the ACC title game versus SMU. Not sure why Katie thinks it's SMU. I'm sure she will be happy to tell us. Fire away in the chat, Katie. I'm a big Rhett Lashley fan too. So if it's that reason, we're in lockstep. But I think at the same time, this is just my opinion, you're talking about year 3, that could, well, you know what? Grunkemeyer would be a 5th-year senior. So there is that. If he continues to improve, I just thought about that. That could be a factor. But what if they don't make the ACC title game? Especially if they don't with the 5th-year senior quarterback. The perception with the boosters would be a little different. By the way, this isn't Virginia Tech. This is everybody in the Atlantic Coast Conference. If you don't get Georgia Tech this year, in other words, you don't beat them, they lost Haynes King, they lost their coordinator, and they lost Aaron Philo, the guy they thought was the heir apparent. The coordinator took him with him to Florida. That sucks, but it's no different than what Franklin did. He took a bunch of players with him. So, I mean, this, look at Iowa State. They were completely robbed. Those players are now in Happy Valley at Penn State. So it is what it is. I think that Virginia Tech, again, Louisville, Virginia, and Georgia Tech, they're going to be kind of measured against those schools. You could throw in SMU. They're better than what I think Virginia Tech is right now by quite a substantial margin. But in 2 years, will they be ahead of SMU then? Maybe, maybe not. It's not a lock by any means. Salty. Franklin is very similar to Brian Kelly. Oh, God. He won't lose the games he should win by year 3. For what was it? At Notre Dame, they won like 20-some games in a row against opponents not ranked in the top 25. It was pretty good. I don't know if Franklin's quite on that level, but it's pretty close. That's the one thing they were saying. Franklin's a better recruiter. Katie, because Mario is the worst head coach in college football, game head coach in college football, Lashley and Franklin are head and shoulders better on game day. You think Franklin is a great, maybe I'm putting words in Katie's mouth here. Do you think Franklin's a great game day coach? I do not. I do not get that sense. I don't think he's terrible, but I don't think he's elite. I'm not saying Mario's elite either. Don't get me wrong. He's had his weirdness. And Katie, if you want to talk about the field goal, or if you want to talk about the Georgia Tech game, or whatever you want to talk about for Mario, I'm sure you'll get there. And there's no doubt. And Katie says, and Brom will Brom you. Yeah, on game day, like, I'm just going to go ahead and say it. The first quarter and a half of the Louisville at Miami game last year, you talk about coaching malpractice. That game, Lord have mercy. Brom ran circles around the Miami staff in that game. Heatherman's a really good defense coordinator. He got smoked too. That was about as bad as it's going to get. To that end, I would imagine that they're going to remember that the next time they play Louisville. They'll be more focused. But it is what it is. Looking at the league, a couple of the other teams that I'm curious about, can O'Brien do anything with Boston College? They're projected with 3.5 wins, but they got a young quarterback that's fairly talented. I just don't think they got anything in the trenches. They can't block nobody. They can't get no sacks. That's a problem. Then when you move a little bit to the west, Pittsburgh, they lost their best linebacker. He transferred to Texas. That hurts. Their defensive tackle transferred to Notre Dame. That one really hurt. You don't have many D tackles like that kid. Francis Brew, he's a really good player. I don't think there are many other teams, though, that are going to challenge outside of the ones I've talked about a little bit. And then Pittsburgh, the league is just down. And that brings me to the final point, and I'm sure Katie will love this. Florida State, I have no idea. I covered Florida State, Locked On Seminoles. There's not much to say about them right now until something changes at multiple levels of the top. Not just Mike Norvell, but the AD and or the president probably, because those guys, at least in my opinion, support Norvell He may not be gone even after this year. That is going to help Virginia Tech. If Norvell is brought back for 27, and Lord help me, I might start a GoFundMe for my own psychiatrist reasons if that's the case. Florida State could be down for the count for a while. I don't think anybody's ever out of it long term because you just need to hire the right coach. But at some point, you would think Florida State would find a way, but they've won 7 games in 2 years, 7, and have not won a road game. Not won a road game since they beat Florida in 2023 at the Swamp. So the league is really weird right now. Virginia Tech has been down. Traditionally, that's one of the better teams in the league. Florida State is down. SMU, a team that's not even normally a part of the league, they're projected by most, myself included, Katie and everybody else, I think, too, probably the second most likely team to end up in the ACC title game. Now, Katie's got to tell you Clemson's winning the league. But overall, Clemson's not Clemson right now until otherwise proven after the year they just had. Georgia Tech, they lost their quarterback. Probably at least for a year, they're not going to be great. Pittsburgh lost their best linebacker and D tackle to the portal. Got a good young quarterback, but got to stop somebody. BC's terrible. Virginia, we're not sure yet at quarterback. Wake Forest and North Carolina was a bomb last year. They improved as the year went on, but whatever. The one team that I'm excited about just to see, and I've waited to say this until now, is NC State. They've got some good transfers. CJ Bailey's got a gun. It's a kid that I got to know during his high school days, played at Chaminade Madonna. He improved immensely. I didn't think when I first saw him as a junior he was any good. He tried to rifle screen passes to guys. Easy does it there, big fella. He's about 6'6", 6'7". He's a big dude. Got a cannon. But now they've got JoJo Trader that's transferred in, Chance Robinson that's transferred in. They got some guys. I know they lost Hollywood Smothers to Texas, but whatever. The point still remains. Virginia Tech and some of these teams coming up, they're not trying just to get Miami. NC State is the fly in the ointment. Now, their defense is probably going to be terrible. And I'm being nice. But offensively, they might light it up, and they might just come out throwing because they know their defense isn't going to be great. They're going to be a fun team this year next. I'm really curious to see NC State. I really, really am. All right, Salty, got to say, I just love Katie's crystal ball takes. They never fail to make my day. Katie, give Braum Miami's talent and watch out. Yeah, he would be absolutely tremendous. Anybody who wants to dispute that, have at it. But there's no doubt in my mind he would do well. The History Expert 82, enjoying the Virginia Tech show. They are my second favorite team after Notre Dame. Thank you. Glad you stopped in to check it out. I think they're going to be relevant this year. Again, I think their floor is 5 wins. I mean, they're going to be competitive. And they got enough guys that are familiar with that roster, on the staff that they can do a few more things a little more quickly. Virginia Peanut Salty says, Smitty, what will be the next position you review in your school sucks at? I don't know. That's a great question. I haven't even thought about it. Give me a minute on that. I might be quarterback. We could just do something like that. Maybe we do that tomorrow. It's not a bad idea. The History Expert 82. Hello, says Salty Peanuts. Katie says, Renegade and Chief Osceola is a great entrance. Yes, it is. It's one of the best in college football history. Katie, I'm betting more that Mario won't as much as Clemson will. I'm betting against Mario. Katie, we know that you're betting against Mario. You should start a company that's called I'm Betting Against Mario. I think we should all fund it because you would be all in on that. Salty says to Katie, you should see the entrance the masked rider makes leading Texas Tech onto the field on a black stallion. The stallion once ran over a referee that didn't get out of the way. I did not know that. That's dangerous. My mom had horses for 50 years. That's not an easy animal to get out of the way. And once it's coming, that's a lot of muscle, man. Holy moly. That's really crazy. I did not know that. Wow. I really feel sorry for that ref. Last thoughts here on the show today. First off, thank you for stopping in to everybody. Again, 6.5 win total for Virginia Tech. If I had to guess, I would say right there. But I think they got 3 losses kind of walking in. Miami, Clemson, and SMU are all on the road. Ugh. So I'm going to guess over at 7 wins if I had to guess, but I think the 6.5 total is pretty much right where it needs to be. That's just the way it is, man. Katie says, can't beat Enter Sandman. Yeah, I'm a big Metallica fan anyway, but Virginia Tech does a great job with that. And the students and the fans, they all love it. Metallica did a concert there at Wayne Stadium not that long ago. Texas Tech routinely places number 1 in NCAA horsemanship. I'm not surprised. Not surprised. If you should in North Texas. Some of the biggest ranches in the world are in North Texas up there in the Panhandle. To that end, I think we're gonna let it rip right there for today. Thank you to everybody that came into the chat. Appreciate it. At Salty's behest, I think tomorrow we'll do Your School Sucks a little bit, but it's going to be about quarterback first. There's going to be, shall we say, some teams that I need to question. Like Georgia's a weird one. They get kids to commit, but they don't sign them. I don't know how I'm supposed to rank them. We're going to talk about quarterback recruiting and fit tomorrow. Did you get the right guy is probably the easiest way to say, but did you get the right guy that will also stick around, not just fit your system, but will they wait their turn? From talking to people, that's the new thing. And I don't know how you grade that. Nobody wants to wait till their 3rd year to play. So I'll have a few comments on that tomorrow that might make a few people be mad. Maybe some feathers get ruffled, but that's all right. I'm not here to make everybody happy. I'm here to tell it like it is. So with that, thank you very much for checking out the Portal Podcast. It's always a pleasure to talk about these different teams. Virginia Tech, we did kind of a light overview. Win total, got 27 transfers. They're just getting started in recruiting. They only have 1 commitment, a kid that's from St. Francis, I believe, D. Lyman. So they got a long way to go, but that's going to be a relevant program. They're going to do some things. So everybody have a good day. This has been the Portal Podcast.